I want to congratulate the great American patriots who flew those magnificent machines tonight, and all of the United States military on an operation the likes of which the world has not seen in many, many decades. Hopefully, we will no longer need their services in this capacity. I hope that's so.
That was President Donald Trump on Saturday night making the announcement following the United States striking 3 nuclear sites in Iran in what was a targeted, precise attack that you now may know. If not, you're waking up on a Monday morning, getting it started, realizing that this was not an attack against the country of Iran. This was not an attack against the Iranian people. In fact, there are military bases outside of these nuclear sites that were also not attacked early on Sunday morning. Instead, what this was a message from the President of the United States, a message that he has been wildly consistent on going back a decade now, that Iran cannot become a nuclear power. He said that since he first came down that escalator back in 2015 in New York City. He's been consistent on this issue. And after Iran was the one who decided that we were going to, flout that 60-day window, we were going to leave the United States flailing in the wind as we sat here trying to negotiate in good faith, the president said enough. In fact, I believe that Donald Trump really didn't want to do this because he has gotten some criticism from some inside of his own base. He really didn't have any interest in doing it. But here's the thing. It's like in grade school when you're getting bullied by a shrimp, when you're getting bullied by somebody who you know is a total paper tiger. At some point, you have to stand up for yourself. At some point, when you realize you're the baddest dude on the block, you got to make people remember that you're the baddest dude on the block, especially when you spend 4 years where the country was like apologizing for what it had done around the world far too many times. And that's what Trump reminded Iran. And it wasn't just about Iran. That is in part what President Trump reminded the world of on Saturday night, early Sunday morning. I don't believe that Trump is in any way looking for some type of broader conflict. How many times can you hear it over the last 36 hours? Whether it's from the president himself, whether it's from Pete Hegseth, leader of the Pentagon, or whether it's from his own vice president, J.D. Vance. This is not about sitting there and saying, we want some Iraq 2.0. That is nowhere near the goals of this administration. Here was J.D. Vance on that very topic yesterday, talking to Meet the Press.
And the second thing is, Kristen, I certainly empathize with Americans who are exhausted after 25 years of foreign entanglements in the Middle East. I understand the concern, but the difference is that back then we had dumb presidents, and now we have a president who actually knows how to accomplish America's national security objectives. So this is not going to be some long, drawn-out thing. We've got in. We've done the job of setting their nuclear program back. We're going to now work to permanently dismantle that nuclear program over the coming years, and that is what the president has set out to do.
J.D. Vance putting it very bluntly. We used to have dumb presidents, he says. Now we don't, John.
Corn Pop used to be the baddest dude. R.I.P. Corn Pop.
Yeah, Corn Pop was a bad dude. But now we got real bad dudes. Bad dudes that are going to remind the worst dudes what you need to be concerned about with the United States of America. And J.D. Vance has long been a poster boy on the right for Republicans who don't want to get entangled in overseas conflicts that don't ultimately serve our interests. And J.D. Vance is saying it loud and clear. We are not going to get ourselves involved in some type of overseas conflict that is going to drain us of time and resources and add to our national debt tremendously. That's not the intended goal here. And I don't know who else you would need to hear it from. I mean, you might be like, hey, Marco Rubio's always kind of been like this. He's been, more on that side of the Republican Party than maybe J.D. Vance. Sure, that's fine about Marco. But J.D.'s right there. Pete Hegseth's right there. These guys have been more towards the isolationist wing of the Republican Party than someone like Marco Rubio. And they're there with the president right now every step of the way. And even Trump himself. You know, listen, there are plenty of times over 7+ years of this show when I have been critical of Donald Trump. I won't go down the list. But on this issue in particular, it seems like on the foreign policy front, Trump actually rises to the moment. You know, like, don't get me wrong. He will mouth off and spout off about people in media and detractors and haters and things like that, right? He'll do that. And whether or not that's appropriate or not depends on the situation. But on foreign policy, Donald Trump, when he addresses it, when he makes his decisions around it, he does seem to have a sobering approach to what he is doing. He takes the moment seriously. And we saw this during his first term. It was oftentimes precise. It was oftentimes effective. And basically every time, it didn't lead to some broader conflict. You can't point to that thing during 1.0 that led to some type of broader conflict. It was, as the president has said over the last couple of days, peace through strength. So for all of his flaws, for all of his maybe things that he hasn't been right on, and he's a human being, so he's not right about everything, he has seemed to have the pulse of the foreign policy in this country and how it should be handled, learning from the mistakes of going back to Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and Joe Biden across the political aisle. He has learned from those mistakes. He does not want to duplicate those mistakes. And he has made it pretty darn clear that his interests are not overseas. They are simply with the American people. And the president, in a 3.5-minute speech on Saturday night, and you heard it more from some of his political allies yesterday, of course, with press conferences and TV hits and everything else, the president of the United States is interested in making sure that the American people remain safe. And yes, that's here in America, but it's also overseas. And that is a large part of why this strike was conducted in the manner it was conducted. So the president, of course, said late last week that we're going to give them up to 2 weeks. And 48 hours later, not even 36 hours later, we are striking Iranian nuclear sites. And it's not clear yet whether or not we've taken out all of their nuclear capabilities. There's some mixed reporting on that as we sit here on a Monday morning. But it's clear they have been set back years on their goals to develop a nuclear weapon in Iran. And now we pray for peace. We pray the Iranians wake up and realize that it's time to come to the table. It's time to be honest brokers. And it's time to not make this any worse than it needs to be. And coming up, the heroes from Saturday night were right here in Missouri. These B-2 bombers flew from Whiteman Air Force Base on a 30-hour flight over to Iran, and they landed back here in Missouri at Whiteman at about 5 p.m. yesterday afternoon. The details behind what these men did out of Whiteman Air Force Base is tremendous. And we'll share some of that with you next on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM and streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Here's some of the reporting from yesterday after these B-2 bombers landed safely back in Missouri at Whiteman Air Force Base. And Mark Alford is going to join us, of course, the 4th Congressional District in Missouri. That includes Whiteman Air Force Base at 7:35 this morning. Mike Kehoe will be here at 8:05, the governor of Missouri. And do you remember the name? Tony Manetti. John shaking his head. Of course he remembers
Ran for
Tony.
office, yeah.
Yeah, he was a character. And he lost to Josh Hawley back in 2018 in the U.S. Senate primary. Well, Tony was a B-2 bomber pilot, a former senior advisor down at Whiteman. He's going to be here at 8:30 this morning on KCMO. Tony's in Aruba this week, enjoying his time down there. But he said, of course, I'll hop on with you. So here's what happened. This Operation Midnight Hammer, as it has been dubbed, included 7 B-2 Spirit bombers that flew east from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri to Iran. Another group of B-2s flew west over the Pacific to act as decoys. News reports emerged over the course of the day on Saturday that a group of bombers were headed to the U.S. base in Guam. That's, of course, in the Pacific. That's the infamous island that the representative from Georgia said was going to tip over if we had too much military action going on in Guam. But anyway, the 18-hour flight east by the bombers that would drop payloads on Iran required multiple in-flight refuelings as the planes crossed the Atlantic and the Mediterranean. The bombers met up with U.S. fighter jets and support aircraft once over land in the Middle East, executing a complex, tightly timed maneuver. This was according to Dean Cain, the man in charge, of course, of the operation. So you look at, and you probably have seen the map in terms of, these guys flying from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri all the way to Iran and coming back. It is an incredible turnaround that they pulled off Saturday night into Sunday morning. They add here, as the bombers approached their targets, the U.S. deployed several deception tactics, including decoys. And the fighter jets cleared the airspace ahead of them, checking for enemy aircraft and surface-to-air missiles. In fact, according to the U.S., they are unaware of any shots fired at the U.S. on the way in. So at about 2:10 a.m. in Iran, the lead B-2 dropped 2 bunker buster bombs known as the GBU-57 Massive Ordnance Penetrators, or MOPs, on the site at Fordo. Over the next 25 minutes, a total of 14 MOPs, Massive Ordnance Penetrators, would be dropped on 2 of the 3 targets. The third target was used Tomahawk missiles were landing there. No shots were fired at the planes as they left the Iranian airspace. Iran's fighters did not fly, and it appears that Iran's surface-to-air missile system did not see the United States. And throughout the mission, the United States retained the element of surprise. And these men and women did return. There was a big kerfuffle yesterday because Pete Hegseth said, "our boys," referring to the Whiteman Air Force Base folks. And a lot of media reported that there was one female fighter who also was part of this mission. That's great. The men and women, doesn't really matter. But people jumped on Pete Hegseth when he said "our boys." It's like, okay, just pump the brakes. I'm glad you guys now know what a woman is again. I'm glad we're kind of going to do that little song and dance. We can now all define what a woman is. But just relax, okay? That's not the story here. The story here is that the men and women of Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri did a tremendous job pulling off the most destructive B-2 bomber attack in history. That's what they did. And they got back safely, came back in one piece, and pulled off an incredibly successful mission. And that is something that was highlighted yesterday by Pete Hegseth, of course, head of the Pentagon. And this is part of what Pete Hegseth had to say during a press conference yesterday morning.
This mission was not and has not been about regime change. The president authorized a precision operation to neutralize the threats to our national interests posed by the Iranian nuclear program and the collective self-defense of our troops and our ally Israel.
That was Pete Hegseth yesterday morning in a press conference. So they continue to use that phrase, a precision operation. And the reason they're using that phrase is because they want to make it very clear this is not the start of something. This is not like phase 1 and phase 2 is coming next week or the week after that, or like it's part of a broader plan. This was simply about making sure that we are protecting American interests. And it was also not about the Iranian people, right? This was not a target against the Iranian people. It was not even a target against the Iranian military bases. That was in no way the intended purpose here. Marco Rubio on Fox Business Network yesterday saying this.
If what they want is a secret program buried in the mountain where no one can see it and inspectors can only come when they say they can come, if that's what they want, then they're going to have big problems, because this is a dangerous, violent, radical regime. Not the Iranian people. We have no problem. We didn't hit Iranian people last night. We hit nuclear facilities. And if what they want is some secret program that looks nothing like the civil nuclear programs around the world, it looks a lot like you're trying to build a bomb, they're going to continue to have problems, not just with us, but with many other countries in the world.
Problems like what? What do you mean?
Like the problems they're facing right now.
That was Marco Rubio, Fox Business, yesterday morning. So that was the clear message from Trump to Hegseth to Vance to Marco Rubio. Nobody wants anything more than what happened on Saturday night, Sunday morning in Iran. Nobody. No one's interested in doing anything more. It is, yes, in some ways a time suck. But I'll also say this, for some who suggest like, man, we've got a lot of problems here in the U.S. This is not what Trump ran on. No, this is, I believe, in large part what Trump ran on. It is using our military in precise, targeted ways to defend our interests so we don't get tied up in broader overseas conflicts. And then we can, yes, spend most of our time focused on fixing things back here at home. In fact, I think this is largely the Trump doctrine at play, John.
Well, absolutely. He ran on it. He's been saying it for 20 years, right?
Yeah.
It comes with the package.
Yep. It's so true.
Not sold separately.
No, not sold separately. No way, no how. A lot of things Trump does offer up, whether it's steaks or colleges or phones that might be sold separately in the package.
Many French fries.
Yes, that is no way is that what's going on here.
Such a cute soundbite.
At 6:27, we will hear from you at 913-408-7957, including what appears to be some split amongst the Trump base after the attack on Saturday night. We'll get to that next on KCMO. 6:34 on a Monday morning on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. We're always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Glad you're here with us. Mark Alford in 1 hour, Missouri's 4th Congressional District, of course, the home of Whiteman Air Force Base, where the men and women returned yesterday early evening from their highly successful strike against 3 nuclear plants in Iran. An amazing strike, 0 casualties from this strike over the weekend, and hopefully one of those strikes that leads to more peace in the Middle East. That, of course, is the goal of this White House. But it has divided many within the Donald Trump base. Now, I don't believe it's as many as social media would lead you to believe, right? Because you do have some very loud voices who have long been supporters of Donald Trump who have been very critical of this. Candace Owens is one of those. She wrote here on X yesterday, a full payload of bombs was dropped, followed by, quote, now is the time for peace. Utterly deranged, writes Candace Owens. Wait, why is that utterly deranged? Nobody was killed. The point was to say, you're not going to develop nuclear weapons on our watch. Let's come to an agreement that is good for you and good for us. Let's remind you who exactly is in charge around here. That was the purpose of it. That was the point of the strike. There's nothing deranged about that, despite what Candace Owens claims. And then she takes it one step further here. Candace Owens writing, if we had raised the $100 million Adelson gave him on GoFundMe, maybe he would have kept his promises. Guess we'll never know. Well, that is quite a statement to make about President Trump. And I think that there are times to be critical of this guy, but to suggest he's basically bought and paid for by Miriam Adelson, who is the widow of Sheldon Adelson, who was a casino mogul in Las Vegas, a longtime friend of President Trump, and obviously Jewish, a supporter of the state of Israel, to suggest that Trump's basically bought and paid for. I mean, at least make the case that Trump supports Israel because his daughter has converted to Judaism. I mean, at least make that case, for crying out loud. But to suggest that, well, the Adelson family gave him $100 million through a super PAC in the election, and therefore that's why he's using the men and women out of Whiteman Air Force Base to go bomb nuclear sites in Iran is you want to talk about utterly deranged. Candace Owens is utterly deranged with that comment. I mean, my goodness. Pot, meet, kettle, please. This is the kind of stuff where you just shake your head and you say, what are we doing here to ourselves? What's the point of this? So I don't believe that divide is as large as some people are turning it into. But some just can't help themselves. And I think a lot of it, too, for those who, have considered themselves long part of Donald Trump's diehard base and have sold that access and sold that idea to their followers, to their subscribers, this is a bad look for them because they've created this mystique that they have a lot of juice in Trump world. And the reality is Trump calls his own shots. Okay, the notion that someone's playing Trump like a puppet master, please. I mean, if there's one thing we've learned about this guy over 10 years, it's that he's not going to be played puppet master to. That's not going to happen with this guy. But when you suggest to people that, hey, I've got the inside scoop, I've got the inside track, I can, help shift policy in this country the way I want it to be, and that's why you've got to follow me. Well, suddenly something like this is a big chink in the armor, so to speak, in terms of making them look, shall we say, not as bulletproof as they insist that they are in that inner circle. 913-408-7957. That is the text line and the studio line on KCMO as we open it up on a Monday morning. Let's go to Stephen in Kansas City. Hello, Stephen. You're on KCMO.
Oh, Pete, man, I couldn't be happier, man. This is so great. Anyone that wants to take a victory lap, Ducey's right outside Whiteman Air Force Base on Fox and Friends right now. So, but listen, it just doesn't get any better than this. These are the real monsters that we should have been going at from the beginning. The real radical Islamist monsters. I love the approach that we're doing here. Is if you want to do some funny business, you want to ignore international law, and you want to keep thumbing your nose at us, then we're gonna destroy the rest of your country. Basically, they can't get out of their country unless we say so. We have total air control over their country, total superiority. Their military has been degraded to about 70%. And it looks like the Israelis are picking off the rest of them. So, this is magnificent. This is a magnificent, the way they've played this.
It's definitely impressive. I'm not sitting here. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm not sitting here like smiling ear to ear in the sense of thinking like, this is so great. Like, I'm glad we did this. I'm not ever happy when we have to use the men and women of our armed forces, in this case, our B-2 bomber pilots. That being said, I accept the world for the way it is. I'm proud of the fact that we have the strongest and best military ever known to mankind. And when we need to use them, this is the kind of stuff we need to use them for. And this is how they should be used in this kind of targeted, precise manner. And I think that's where the bulk of the American people are at. I'm obviously proud of them, but I'm not glad it came to this. I wish the Iranians would have just come to the table a couple of weeks ago within that deadline that they were given. And, then we don't have to do any of this. But they made that choice, right? 913-408-7957. Let's go to Walter in Spring Hill. Go ahead, Walter. You're on KCMO.
Good morning, Pete. The thing, the bottom line is we have Obama and Biden to blame for this because they were the appeasers in chief by giving them millions of dollars or what have you. And these people that are bitching and moaning about Trump doing this would be the same people complaining if Iran developed a bomb and bombed us, because they'd be saying, well, why didn't he do something when he had a chance? So you can't have it both ways.
Well, that's true as well. Here's the thing. There's the isolationist right that is of the belief that nothing that happens on the other side of the world has any impact on us, and that's just disingenuous. It's not that black and white. And then you also have, additionally, the people on the left who are trying to forever appease. But here's the thing. I think part of the reason this debate is happening within the Republican Party, you also got to blame George W. Bush. You can't just blame Obama and Biden. Don't get me wrong. They weren't any good on the foreign policy issues either. But George W. Bush and his handling of Iraq is why we sit here nearly 25 years later and people are like, we don't want that again. And I understand. Nobody wants that again. But because Bush partially screwed that up so bad, that's why we sit here and have to even have the conversation. Libby and Waldo, you're on KCMO. Good morning, Libby.
Oh, good morning, Pete. I was telling your screener there that initially I had a real, not a mental break, but having been a former military officer's wife from Vietnam, I understand military tactics. I understand the thinking behind it. And you can't let your enemy at all have any idea what you're going to do. And we do it but when he said 2 weeks, I guess I took him literally, and yet I knew it could happen. At the same time, I will say I just had a strong reaction to it. Not that I'm against it at all. I just don't want any other fallout from this at all. I'm concerned about that. I really am. But, we are here now. We support him, and we just got to go forward.
I'm with you, Libby. Thank you. I don't think anybody wants anything more. I really don't. And I've heard some fear-mongering around this that would suggest, hey, these Iranians are going to come back, whether it's with sleeper cells they already have in the United States, and attack us. I think that they would do that no matter what. If they had the capabilities, they would do it. I don't think that they were waiting for something like this. But it's something that, of course, should be in the back of all our minds. There's no doubt about it. But I also am of the belief that the president has intel, has information, and hopefully has the right people in place, God willing, that will do everything in their power to sniff anything out that may happen here on the homeland. But I also don't believe that you can make decisions if you're the president of the United States and the commander-in-chief based on being fearful of what terrorist regimes might end up doing. Because then you're in an appeasement phase as the commander-in-chief. Paul in Kansas City. Hey, Paul. What's up, man? You're on KCMO.
Hey, Pete. I want to go to the political side. Trump has once again boxed the Democrats in because as the Democrats support illegal immigration, MS-13, biological males playing female sports, pro-Hamas, now they've added the Iranians as their support list on the Democratic side. And they're really, when Obama bombed and Hillary Clinton bombed Gaddafi in Libya, Tim Kaine did get up and say, I got to support the War Powers Act. This is outrageous that we bombed Libya. So they're really in a box again. Trump, once again, is him to be on the political side, I believe.
I'm with you there, Paul. Thank you, my man. I appreciate you.
Thanks,
that is well said. Stand beside her. There have been a lot of just weird reactions to what happened over the weekend in Iran with 3 nuclear strikes struck. Say that one 3 times in a row. 3 nuclear sites struck by, of course, B-2 bombers who came from Whiteman Air Force Base here in Missouri and went to the other side of the world early on Sunday morning in Iran at about 2 a.m., and struck these 3 locations. And obviously the goal here for the president of the United States is to promote peace through strength and get these individuals to the table, right? Get the supreme leader, get Israel, get the Middle East to the table and say, guys, let's come to a conclusion here that is in the best interest of everybody. That's the ultimate goal. But I saw this approach from many on social media over the weekend. And it went something along these lines. What Trump did, what the U.S. did, was like punching someone at the bar and then telling them, now is the time for peace. That is such an awful analogy. John's throwing his hands up on the other side of the glass. I wish I could have seen that.
Did the writer's parents have any children that lived? That's my main question.
Oh, my gosh. That's what I thought when I saw stuff like this. But it got like millions and millions of views, posts along these lines. Here's the difference. You want to use your bar analogy? I'll use your bar analogy here. All right? The bar analogy is you're minding your own business at the bar all night, and someone's mocking you. They're threatening you. They're saying, let's go outside, buddy. You bumped into me. You looked at me the wrong way. And you're like, bro, I'm just here for a good time. Just trying to have a couple drinks, mind my own business. Oh, yeah? Oh, yeah. And this guy is heckling you all night. He's pretending to punch you all night. He's threatening you all night. And you're like, dude, come on, just leave me alone here, bro. And let's just all have a good time. Let's get a couple drinks and go home. Everybody's happy. And from the back of the bar, this guy won't leave you alone. And then finally, you continue to try to promote peace. You continue to try to mind your own business. You don't want to make a scene. You want what's in the best interest of everybody. And he takes it a step too far. He throws that first punch. Now, it's not really a punch. It's not intended to be a punch, but he's trying to be a bully, trying to be a tough guy. And you say, listen, pal, you want to go out back? Let's go out back. I'll show you how this goes. And you knock him out, one clean punch, bing, bang, boom, rest is over. That's it. That's the correct bar analogy that people will not put into perspective on what just happened over the weekend.
He also punched your best friend, too.
Yeah, yes. Good addition there, Mark. Well done. Nice job by you. That's the correct bar analogy, if you want to use one. Not like, man, the U.S. punched somebody at the bar and then said, now is the time for peace. That is so disingenuous. But I saw a lot of that on social media Saturday night into Sunday morning. It's like, come on, we're not the instigators here in all this. How long do you want to give these individuals before you finally say, guys, I've given you multiple deadlines. You're not abiding by them. We're trying to promote peace here in the region. You're doing things we've agreed that you can't do and you can't have. And if you're not going to make good on those promises, we're going to have a problem here. And it's going to be very easy for us as the United States, with the most powerful military in the history of mankind, to fix what we perceive to be as the problems that you have created. That is what happened over the weekend.
I'm going to be at the bar over the next couple of weeks. If you see me there, come by. I'll buy you a drink. Otherwise, you start throwing crap at my girlfriend again, we got a problem.
Yes. That's exactly right. And that is basically what Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, was saying yesterday. He made the rounds on multiple Sunday morning news shows. And here's what he said on CBS.
Do you know why we have bases in Bahrain and Qatar and UAE and all these places? All of those bases are there because those countries are afraid that Iran will attack them. If Iran was not a threat to the region, if the Iranian regime, because I'm talking about the Iranian people, the regime was not a threat to the region, we wouldn't have to have any of these bases. Those bases are there because those countries are petrified that that the Iranian Shia clerics that run that country will attack their country.
Will the United States defend them if they are?
As you know, they've got a very difficult history. Well, that's why we're there. That's why we're there.
So,
but
yes, we will defend them.
Is what they're threatening to do. So we'll defend our people, obviously. We'll defend our people. Well, they'll attack our bases. And those are our bases, and we're going to defend our personnel, and we're prepared to do that. But we'll do more than just defend. We'll impose costs on Iran if they attack American personnel, whether they do it directly or whether they do it through some of these proxies that they try to hide behind. And that includes the Houthis. Yeah. So another proxy of theirs. So, but let's hope they don't choose that route. Let's all hope that they actually decide, okay, let's go negotiate, because we want a diplomatic and peaceful solution. We have achieved our objectives. We're ready to negotiate this in a peaceful, diplomatic way. We've been prepared to do that for days. They are the ones that played games, as they have done for 40 years, as they have done to multiple presidents. They tried to play games with President Trump, and they see what happens. This is not a game-playing president. When he says he's going to do something, he will do it.
Would we call this FAFO on the streets? Would that be the correct acronym here for part of what happened over the weekend? I think so. And to add to the bar analogy we were just talking about, here's the other thing. The guy heckling you at the bar is like 110 pounds soaking wet and 5'4" and couldn't bench press 85 pounds. and you're 6'5", benching 275 on a light workout day. That's adding to the bar analogy here as well. We're not going to get bullied. We're not going to have terms dictated to us by the guy at the bar who's 110 pounds, 5'4", soaking wet. That's not what's going to happen here, to keep that bar analogy going. And the purpose is not because the guy who's 6'5" wants some type of fight at the bar. He doesn't. He's trying to hold off fighting this guy. But at some point, you got to put people in their place when they're teasing you, when they're bullying you. We had that conversation in our house, right? It's like, we got one kid who likes to tweak the rest of them sometimes. And, sometimes you got to tell the others to stand up for themselves. Hey, you're bigger. You're stronger. Stand up for yourself. That's what the United States did on Saturday. And it is not about creating broader conflict in the Middle East. It's not. Randy is on KCMO. Go ahead, Randy. Good morning.
Yeah, hey, I saw a clip of the UN Security Council meeting, the emergency meeting, and it was hilarious because the UN ambassador from Israel literally read the riot act. He said, you guys do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then you come to this council and you ask for sympathy? He said, you got to be kidding me? He said, this is disgusting. It's like a parent that doesn't discipline their kid. They throw a fit in the Hy-Vee, and everybody else is standing around looking at him and say, why don't you spank his butt? And so Trump spanked their butt, and everybody's like, look how terrible they are to their child. So it's go look at that UN meeting. It was very interesting to see the laundry list of what Iran and their proxies are doing. So,
are you judging those of us whose kids might have a meltdown in Hy-Vee once in a while?
No, I'm not. No, I don't judge anybody. As long as you're spanking your kid, I'm good to go. Or the child leaves with you in a quick manner. So, but no, they're undisciplined children in the world community, and they've sent so many murders after Israel. And Israel's like, you come to this council and ask for sympathy from us because you got bombed after all the stuff you've done. I mean, he put it in a perspective that had to be embarrassing to a lot of countries in that council.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
It was good.
Thank you, Randy. I appreciate you, man. 913-408-7957 is how you join us on KCMO Talk Radio. That is also the text line, 913-408-7957. We're continuing. The O'Reilly Morning Update, of course, is coming up. And we have some insight from Bill based on something he said over the weekend that stood out to me. We'll share that with you. And then Mark Alford, Missouri's 4th Congressional District, live from Whiteman Air Force Base at 7:35 this morning on KCMO Talk Radio. Interesting commentary there by Bill O'Reilly on a Monday morning on KCMO Talk Radio following the 3 strikes against the Iranian nuclear sites at about 2 a.m. on Sunday, Iranian time. Of course, we were up here in the studios at about 8 o'clock, an hour before President Trump went live. And I do want to pat this radio station on the back for being live while that attack was going on. Our competitor that dubs themselves the news station of Kansas City was nowhere to be found on Saturday night. They were talking about male enhancement pills or something. I don't know. But they were not talking and they were not covering what was a historic moment in modern American history after these B-2 bombers flew from Whiteman Air Force Base here in Missouri, 37 hours nonstop to hit these nuke sites in Iran. Absolutely incredible. And Mark Alford will be here in 10 minutes live from Whiteman Air Force Base to give us an update from down there. Now, Bill O'Reilly was on News Nation over the weekend, where, of course, he's a contributor now. And Saturday night, talking to Leland Vittert about what was going on and the breaking news that obviously the world was watching. And he pointed out something about the politics of the moment and the absurdity of the politics of the moment from one side of the political aisle.
Do you realize that there was a nitwit in Congress named Sean Gaston from Illinois who within minutes called for Trump's impeachment?
So did AOC.
Well, I don't even think that woman, I think that's a cartoon. That's not really a person, okay? But this Gaston, I mean, you're looking at this person All right, if you don't believe he should have done it, you wait. You don't do that 10 minutes after a military action when we still have people in the air.
That was Bill O'Reilly. He's absolutely right. If you want to disagree with Trump's decision to make the case, more power to you. It's America. You can do that. But can you wait until the guys and gal return home to Whiteman here in Missouri? Can you wait for them to land back on U.S. soil? Is that too much to ask? Like, can we wait till Monday morning to have that conversation? Now, I will say this was not the entire Democratic Party. It's not fair to paint that broad brush. My former congressman, when I was working at Fox and living on the East Coast, his name is Josh Gottheimer. He represents a portion of northern New Jersey. He put out a statement praising the strikes on Iran as, quote, a critical and decisive action to protect America and freedom and democracy at home and around the world. So it was not the entire Democrat Party. In fact, you obviously had some Republicans who were very critical of this over the weekend. You had AOC and Marjorie Taylor Greene on the same page. What do you make of that? Besides the IQ not being very high when you combine the two. Like, that's fascinating, right? Based on what happened here over the weekend. So it really wasn't a party breakdown. You can't say, like, Republicans are saying X and Democrats are saying Y. There's this weird coalition forming between factions of the Republican Party and the Democrat Party on this specific issue. And that's why, we should all just look at it as issue by issue and topic by topic. But I'm not picking the side of, like, parties here, and I don't think anybody should. It's just about having some common sense in what just happened over the weekend and saying we struck 3 nuclear sites. It was targeted. It was precise. And now we want to move on from all this. And now we want to come to a conclusion on all this. And now we want to get around to the table here, which is what Trump was doing for 60 days while they basically kicked the can down the road and didn't think he was going to do anything about it. I saw this from a Democrat strategist. His name is Dan Turrentine. He wrote on X over the weekend, "It was too depressing to write this last night after we got off the air, so I went to bed. But it needs to be said by more Democrats. This was not an impeachable offense, and Trump did not need congressional approval for one precision attack under the circumstances, just as Obama did not when striking bin Laden. Why can't our party just say it's great we achieved the objective and destroyed Iran's nuclear sites? God bless the soldiers who carried this out and made it home safely. God bless our country, military, allies, and we look forward to a full intel briefing. If one must then assert congressional authority at the moment, add that any escalation will require congressional approval. And if you must, express concern for where this may go and what might come next. But for so many in my party to knee-jerk with unhinged calls for impeachment and sadly omit in their statement support for Iran not having nuclear weapons, which has been a principle of our party for 40 years, is truly TDS. Trump derangement syndrome. That is a post from Democrat strategist Dan Turrentine on X yesterday. And credit to him for saying that. Credit to Josh Gottheimer, one notable representative, for also calling these strikes successful. And also John Fetterman, a congressman, of course, out of Pennsylvania, a senator out of Pennsylvania, saying that as well. Here locally, you're not going to see anything from you're not going to see a lot from either of our representatives. Sharice Davids saying here, let me be clear, President Trump's unilateral decision to launch military action against Iran without constitutionally mandated congressional approval puts American troops and global stability at risk and threatens another endless war. So that was Sharice Davids on the Kansas side of the state line doing exactly what Dan Turrentine told her not to do. Go figure. Oh, this is a great tweet I just saw. X post, I guess we'd call it now, not tweet. If Trump cured cancer, there would be Democrats tweeting about oncology nurses losing their jobs. That is just so true. And this strike over the weekend is just a classic example of people being incapable of saying, give the guys some credit. Strikes are done. we have concerns as to what may happen next. You heard Governor Mike Kehoe saying, be vigilant. We got an app out there that we want people to utilize, and obviously let us know if they see something, say something. It's called the Safe Nation app. We shared it on X at Pete Mundo, and Mark will pop it up on the KCMO Talk Radio social media accounts as well. But that's not the conversation some are wanting to have right now. You got Emmanuel Cleaver out there saying he can't do this. He can't. Obama dropped 26,000 bombs in 2016. My goodness. Sharice Davids was not around then in Congress, but she put out a very similar statement to Emmanuel Cleaver saying President Trump's unilateral decision to launch military action against Iran without constitutionally mandated congressional approval puts American troops and global stability at risk and threatens another endless war. It does not threaten an endless war. It doesn't. And when it comes to putting American troops at risk, could you imagine if that strike had to go through Congress? That thing would have leaked potentially while the men and women flying from Whiteman Air Force Base were in the air. You know as well as I do, New York Times, NBC, somebody would have leaked this to the press out of Congress because suddenly the amount of people that knew about it would have been exponentially greater than what was known going into the attack on Saturday night, Sunday morning. And that opens up American troops to be at great risk. Right? Like, this is not the conversation to have a day or two after this happens. If you want to suggest that there could be fallout from this, that we need to be careful about, that's a fair conversation to discuss this week. That is. But for hours after the strike to have happened, for these men and women to not even be back at Whiteman, and for people to be posting on social media, hey, you can't do this. What are you doing? You can't be going down this road. It's like, guys, that's not the play here.
It's not necessarily a sign of intelligence to state the obvious.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
we have to be careful.
Yeah, thank you.
Huh.
Thank you. Yeah, you're right. J.D. Vance also noting something that needs to be shared here, that this was not an attack on the nation of Iran.
We did not attack the nation of Iran. We did not attack any civilian targets. We didn't even attack military targets outside of the 3 nuclear weapons facilities that we thought were important to accomplish our goal of preventing Iran from having a nuclear weapon. So how Iran responds, I think, is ultimately the ball is in their court. But if you look at what we did, it was very precise, very narrowly tailored to our objective. And if the Iranians decide to expand this, then that's ultimately their decision, and the President of the United States will respond in kind.
That is J.D. Vance on ABC yesterday, and Pete Hegseth, of course, head of the Pentagon, doubling down on this as well. Here's what he said during a press conference.
As President Trump has stated, the United States does not seek war. But let me be clear. We will act swiftly and decisively when our people, our partners, or our interests are threatened. Iran should listen to the President of the United States and know that he means it, every word. I want to give congratulations to our Commander-in-Chief. It was an honor to watch him lead last night and throughout, and to our great American warriors on this successful operation. God bless our troops. God bless America. And we give glory to God for his providence and continue to ask for his protection.
That was Pete Hegseth yesterday morning during a press conference that began at about 7 o'clock Central Time from the Pentagon. So you are hearing from the president, from the vice president, from Pete Hegseth there, of course, that we do not anticipate and we are not interested in any type of larger scale war. You heard this first thing from the president on Saturday night. I don't know how many more ways it can be shared, right? How many more times the same people in charge can say the same thing? I also find it fascinating that those who wanted to just cut endless checks for billions of dollars to Ukraine to continue a war suddenly find themselves in a position right now where they're like, what are we doing here?
Hey.
Now, yeah, whoa. Now, I will say 2 things can be true at the same time in this case. giving Ukraine the ability to defend itself, not involving U.S. troops, having them hopefully weaken Putin and weaken Russia, is in America's interests. I'll give you that. There also had to be and has to be some type of an off-ramp here for everybody involved. Like, there's a nuance to that, right? And in this lane as well, there's a nuance when it comes to how this is being handled. But on social media and cable news, nuance is really not of interest to anybody. It's carnival barking. That's what it is. Instead of saying, hey, there's a lot of gray here in this and how we handle both of these cases, and also you have to be willing to adjust and change your opinion based on how things unfold. You can't be steadfast on an opinion when you get new facts that should change the opinion. That is also something that needs to be highlighted here, and we'll watch how it plays out going forward. So if you were following one social media account on Saturday night, you may have known something was about to happen. There's a account on X that is called the Pentagon Pizza Report. I'm not kidding here. This is a real account on X. And they follow the deliveries of pizzas around the Pentagon, and when they seem to be spiking and when they appear to be low.
What?
Yes.
Isn't that protected information?
Well, you can look up.
Elon got something to do with this? Well, all the squawking about protected information, it's interesting what gets found.
Oh, I know. This account has 195,000 followers.
Sure, right?
Huge numbers of followers here. They call themselves the open source tracking of pizza spot activities around the Pentagon and other places. Frequent updates on where the lines are long.
Other places. Okay.
Yes.
That's cool.
So they reported here at 6:13 our time. So we found out about the strikes about an hour later, right after, 7 o'clock? Right around 7 o'clock local time, we found out about these strikes against the Iran nuclear sites. So there was high activity being reported at the closest Papa John's to the Pentagon at about 6 p.m. Central, 7 o'clock Eastern time. Like double the amount of activity for a normal Saturday night at 7 p.m. Eastern at the Papa John's closest to the Pentagon. Now, I suddenly question Pentagon leadership because anyone who is going to eat Papa John's is no one I want in charge of our military, just to be honest. But I understand you're in a pinch. It's like Tony Minetti boiling the hot dog. You got to eat what you got to eat, okay? Beggars can't be choosers here.
It could have been a ruse and they ordered from Domino's, right? Like the Guam thing.
Yeah. So that was one thing that was noted by this Pentagon Pizza Report. The other thing that was noted was very low activity at Freddy's Beach Bar. Now, what is Freddy's Beach Bar? Freddy's Beach Bar and Restaurant is right around the corner from the Pentagon building, about 4 minutes away. It's a very popular gay bar outside of Washington, D.C. And that is the other thing, and that's not to suggest the preferred preferences of employees at the Pentagon. It's just, a place that's obviously bustling and got a lot of activity right down the road from the Pentagon. And this also on Saturday night was reported by this same account that Freddy's Beach Bar had abnormally low activity levels for a Saturday at 7 o'clock Eastern time. So the pizza deliveries to the Pentagon were skyrocketing. Freddy's Beach Bar was a ghost town. So people are sitting there and maybe they're speculating something is going on. And within an hour of that post being put up on X, the world finds out about the 3 strikes against the Iranian nuclear sites. So I guess if you're looking for an account to follow on X, you can follow the Pentagon Pizza Report, which I'm a follower of, and you can join it as well. And then follow me on X at Pete Mundo, and Mark's on there, and John's not because, well, he was banned years ago.
Hey, they didn't bring my breadsticks once. I'm done. Dude, that's it.
Oh, man, that's just too much. Now, speaking of food ties to all this, I heard Trump talking on Saturday night. We aired it right here on KCMO Talk Radio. We were running live coverage courtesy of Fox News. And the president of the United States threw out the name, and you may have heard this during his speech, Dan Raising Cain, as he called him. Now, Dan is the 22nd chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He was in the press conference yesterday at about 7 o'clock in the morning with Pete Hegseth. But I couldn't help but chuckle to myself that this guy's nickname is Raisin, and he goes by Dan Raising Cain. And immediately I'm thinking about Raising Cane's. Literally, that's where my mind went. I'm like, this guy's nickname is really Raisin, and he goes by Dan Raising Cain. That's an incredible nickname to have. And I saw social media start blowing up about it over the weekend. And here he was yesterday morning during his press conference.
But initial battle damage assessments indicate that all 3 sites sustained extremely severe damage and destruction. More than 125 U.S. aircraft participated in this mission, including B-2 stealth bombers, multiple flights of 4th and 5th generation fighters, dozens and dozens of air refueling tankers, a guided missile submarine, and a full array of intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance aircraft, as well as hundreds of maintenance and operational professionals.
That was Dean Raising Cain yesterday during his press conference on KCMO. Wasn't on KCMO, but you're hearing it on KCMO Talk Radio. On the text line, 913-4087-957. Now, I knew this was going to bother somebody. There was going to be some diehard Papa John's fan who was going to be all hot and bothered. I knew it. On the text line, Mundo, you are a true fast food snob.
Such a nice man.
Oh, come on. Come on.
I wouldn't say that. You're not a fast food fan, period.
Well, that's true.
Not a connoisseur in any way.
If I'm not, you're right about that. John is the connoisseur, and we defer to John on this stuff.
I take it all in, so I'm not really even a connoisseur, right?
True.
Just a sewer.
Yeah. And Mark only eats the fast food based on where he can get a deal on the apps.
There you go.
That's right. And I did get a good deal at Papa John's a couple weeks ago.
Oh, good for you, man.
Shout out.
Well, if you want to call me a snob because I won't eat Casey's Pizza or Papa John's, I'll be your snob every day of the week. Yeah, or Red Lobster. I'll be your snob all day, every day. Okay? I'm happy to be that guy for you.
I'm not worth your Red Lobster money.